Oh, it's very surreal. You know, we've been working on this for a very long time. So to finally be here to be a month out, I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, that mic's not.
Oh man. Okay. I'm just gonna yell.
No, it's working, isn't it?
Is it working? Is it working?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just gotta talk into it.
All right. Sorry. I was saying it's very surreal. You know, we've been working on this for so long, and now just be a month out. Yeah, it's super surreal, but also very, very exciting to finally share with you about what we've been building.
Yeah, it may be the eve of it for you, but it is not really the eve of it for us. We've been in the trenches, so to speak, so it's exciting to finally see the hard work pay off and to get you guys the books in less than a month.
Tom, would you say drawing comics is easy?
It's not as hard as writing them, though.
Josh, we know that's not true.
Gotta fight someone.
We can have a whole new debate in this panel, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Sean,
I said that.
Sean, this is the start. That's very bad.
That's nice.
G.I. Joe's got a long history in comics. And so what makes this launch more special than all the other ones?
Because we did it.
That's right.
I mean, it is weird. I don't think any of us on this table expected to be involved in Transformers or G.I. Joe. Maybe Robert did, because he read The Secret and he manifested everything that he wanted in his heart.
I'm telling you it works!
But yeah, I think it's surreal to be like, oh yeah, we have a new G.I. Joe #1 coming out, and it feels, you know, the whole point of Energon Universe was to make sure that we captured the specifics that appealed to the hardcore crowd, got Laps fans that had interacted with before, but also the most heartening thing is a lot of people have like, I picked up Duke, I don't even know what G.I. Joe is, and that's my favorite book. So I think that we've been able to get people interested in all this, and then we have a whole new phase that we've been building up to very deliberately. I think it was one of our biggest risks was doing all these miniseries and just setting the table with all these factions that are building, and there's so much conflict coming. Yeah, it's just exciting. So.
Now, Robert, like this, you've been kind of the chief architect of a lot of this. So to see it all come together in this way, right? Obviously, you know, with those introductions, why was that important for you in setting this up?
I think there's been so many great things done with G.I. Joe in comics. You know, Larry Hama's Long Run, various things at other publishers, just countless G.I. Joe books. The only thing that we could really conceive of that would feel different, feel new, feel like a fresh take was to do something that, I feel like this mic is getting better with every word. That happens. Is to do something that, you know, like focused on the individual characters, showed that, you know, that they're special individually. I think that the cast of G.I. Joe is robust. It's got better rogues gallery than Spider-Man and Batman when it gets down to it. I mean, there's some really, am I getting looks? Am I getting looks?
Watch it.
No one likes Batman. Batman's boring, come on. Anyway, clown. Am I getting groans? I will fight anyway.
I got my money on Rob.
I love the rogues gallery, but yeah, and like keying in on those characters and showing how special they are, leading into a G.I. Joe book where they can all interact and be in the book together. That was the thing we thought would be really cool. And we always do things that excite us as fans. So it was always from a place of like, okay, if I was just going to be reading these comics, like what would I want to see? What would I want to happen? And that's what we do.
I love that. Josh and Tom, I want to
Am
ask
I
you.
not fighting anybody, or we're okay on the rogue gallery?
I got your
thing?
back, man.
No one likes Bane and Bane. I like Clayface okay, but you can't put him in a movie because the movie's got to be grounded. Anyway,
Josh and Tom, you guys worked on Duke together, obviously, and so, you know, as you guys are putting together this new team, you guys are doing something, you're creating new characters and putting new toys into the sandbox. We've got on the screen right here, we've got Risk, can you talk to us a bit about adding toys to the sandbox?
Yeah. You know, I really love this property. I've been a big fan of it since I was a kid. And when I started talking about what I want to do with it, it was definitely something where it was like, I have all these toys, all these characters that I really want to work with, but we had to bring in new stuff. We had to introduce some new characters. And I mean, of course, like, as someone who's loved G.I. Joe my entire life, to know that we can introduce a new G.I. Joe, like, of course I was going to do that. And so his character, his name is Riff. He's a CIA agent who also specializes in risk assessment. But for a long time, he would watch other people be in the field, and he would be telling them what the risk was. He wasn't taking the risk himself. And so then eventually he went in and decided he was going to go into the field and go into really dangerous areas. And then he gets called in by Hawk to come in and help with Joe's. But yeah, he's definitely kind of he's a risk taker. He's a thrill seeker, you know. And we've talked about how at one time, even when he was in the CIA, he would go do cage fighting because he was just always looking for the next thrill that he could have. And so the problem with him is that kind of runs counter to Duke. You know, Duke can be. We've seen how he changed Duke around. We try to get him away from just being kind of a Boy Scout character, but he's still a leader of the team, and he still wants to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do to win, but without taking unnecessary risks. And that doesn't really align with risk, and so we'll have a lot of conflict between the two of them. Yeah, we put a lot of thought in his design. Tom, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, designing a new character for a property like G.I. Joe, which is like on the Mount Rushmore of like toy properties, is a big ask, and it's a huge honor to be able to contribute to the history of that brand. And I did put a lot of thought into the design of the character. We were talking earlier, when I do designs and I send them over to Josh and Robert and everyone, I put in little like descriptors of reasons that I made some decisions, and it looks like on that other cover, the design cover for Risk, they included a couple of those things that I wrote, which is nice that got out.
Well, so I have all the classified toys, right? And I have them in my office on these shelves, and every once in a while when I'm working on
This might be fucking love your collection, bro.
Yeah, go classified. And so when I'm working on the book, every once in a while I'll just look at the toys. You know, I just sit and look at them and look at how unique all the designs are. And we started talking about making a new Joe. I was like, that's the thing. I want to make sure that when we make him, that he can stand up there, because all the Joes are so unique, right? They all bring so much personality, and their looks are so different. So I was like, how are we gonna make him look different? You know, how can I put him up there? It was fun. I was looking at him, you know, I'm looking at Duke, I'm looking at Shipwreck, and I look at Chuckles, and I'm like, man, he's wearing a white t-shirt. And I was like, you know what I've never seen before? I've never seen a Joe wearing a tie. And I was like, man, what if he wore a suit? And then I started thinking about John Wick, and I was like, oh yeah, we gave him a suit, and he beat people up. And then I was like, and then you gave him a shotgun, and I was like, what if,
action, yeah.
yeah, I was like, what if we put gold on it and we call it the Moneymaker? And we started like, I was just going on this whole path with him, like, how do I make him look different? And I was like, okay, I want to toy this guy. So I started like going on the whole path, and so that was all the information that I handed over to him, was like, we have to make sure he looks different, and that was the reason for the suit and tie.
When you think John Wick, you think a very specific look, you know, so it was very important to me to not make him look exactly like that, John
Yeah.
Wick and G.I. Joe, so I tried to rough him up a little bit, make him a little more dangerous looking.
And not to say he's John Wick.
Oh, yeah,
Come
yeah,
on, like JoJo has such a history of doing that, basically, like taking this thing that everybody loves and being like, we're gonna Joeify it. So, you know, that's what we were headed for.
Yeah.
We've been showing off some of the covers. Obviously, you know, with these, there's a connecting John Boymeyers, which is great. The great, you know, the almighty David Finch doing a cover here is phenomenal. But then you guys are having a little fun. Obviously, we've got some blank covers for both Joe's and.
I drew those.
A great foil by Jenny Friesen, which will be a lot of fun. But I think the one for me that I'm real excited about is this die cover. When you're putting some of these covers together, guys, like what, you know, in figuring out who to approach and the fun things to do, where does that come from?
I want to call out executive editor at Skybound, Ben Abernathy. He's sitting here in the front row. Ben has amazing taste in artists. Everyone in comics always loves working with Ben, and a lot of artists have always liked working with Ben. So Ben has one of the best Rolodexes. It's one of the best tastes in artists in comics, and so when he came over, it was like, we know that Ben has some of the best covers, and so you can see that with the stuff here. And this is one that I was very excited about too, as put this one together. But yeah, executive editor Ben Abernathy right here, he's the one to thank for the covers. I'll
be turning in the extra pages, and then Ben will just, as I turn them in, dump like 4 amazing covers off for me to look at from like some of the best artists in the world, and it always makes my day. So.
That's great. Going through some of the character designs here, I gotta ask, when putting the team together, is there someone on the cutting room floor that maybe created a bunch of arguments, or which one of the...
That's Sean's face. He's
No, like you obviously offended you somehow. So,
For this one.
When it
Do you
came
want to
time
complain,
deliver-
Josh? Do you want to complain, everybody?
You can say that.
You want to whine about a character we don't let you use?
I
No, I
don't
actually
use them
don't remember.
all the time, and I'll be like, this one, Robert goes no, this one, Robert goes no.
well, no, I think you were very methodical about how you assembled this.
When it came to the actual roster we have, I really put a lot of thought into, you know, who were the early characters that were introduced in the toy line. Like I really kind of started there, and then it was with some characters about like who would make the most sense to have the dynamics and the relationships, and in some cases would clash with each other and kind of see how they would play off each other. So yeah, we put a lot of thought into which characters. And yeah, I'm really happy with the team.
Let me ask the audience, is there like a mainline core popular G.I. Joe character that you would think would be in an initial G.I. Joe lineup that is not in that lineup?
Snake Who's Snake Eye?
Raptor!
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that
I don't know who that is.
Shockwave!
We're gonna,
Yeah, Flint was in the free comic tape book.
Some fan you
It was free.
we're just gonna,
We should look into this Snake Eyes guy. I hear he's popular.
a little bit.
Not that.
All right. Now let's move on.
But yeah, look at these amazing designs by Tom.
And then we also got a look at the G.I. Joe 2 cover, which is great. And in this, and let me flip to it, because you guys are bringing in the Cobra Valkyries with a really badass look.
Yeah, I have those toys in my office and I have them on my desk, and we realized that when we were bringing in, we were gonna make Baroness Joe, right? Like we made that decision, and I thought that was an interesting way of introducing her. Because again, like we're trying to do things that are unexpected. You know, we don't want to repeat history. We want to honor history, but we don't want to repeat it. I'm sorry, retell the story, right? And so having Baroness come onto the Joes, I thought would be an interesting dynamic, right? And the question you're all going to ask is, when is she going to trade them? And that's the thing. Is she ever going to? You know, we don't know, right? We don't know. But I realized after that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That means there are no women in Cobra.
Because women aren't evil, Josh.
Yeah.
Just men.
So I was like, okay, wait, and I know there are, but it was like, okay, how do we do this? And again, we're always trying to find ways of doing something different and unexpected. And I was like, okay, what about the Valkyries? And then I realized the Valkyries were new. They were a new design going back to the G.I. Joe lore, but actually had never appeared in anything before, right? They were never in the comics, they'd never been in the cartoons or anything. They were a brand new property, never been used. And I was like, okay, what's their deal? And I was reading about them, and I was like, oh, they only shoot the wounded in the field? That's what they do? They're like Cobra commanders, people that go out there and they kill the wounded? And I was like, so they can go to Valhalla? And I was like, oh my god, that is so cool, okay. Let's put them in there. So yeah, they had their first appearance in actual like G.I. Joe lore in G.I. Joe number 2.
Yeah. And that was some of the other covers. Chameleon, that was a character that is a familiar name, but it was like an alter ego of Baroness, but also like you can't introduce that character and also with Baroness being set up. So we chose an opportunity to find another I think it was a character that showed up in one episode of G.I. Joe, a story of Carlton Ritz, and like kind of developed this foil that could be to go against Destro, and be just as powerful. And then I think maybe Marco Ferrari did the design. Yeah, and then Tom's done a new version for this book, and she's a really cool character.
And then we've also got it covered by Jorge Corona. Jorge, you've been working in the Transformers corner of the Energon universe. What's it like to play with the G.I. Joe toys?
Way too organic. It's way too fleshy. But no, it was fun. I was happy when I was called in. Technically, I think that was the first thing I did. There's been some bleeding into G.I. Joe from the Transformers, obviously, and I don't think we've shown too much of that. But no, this was a lot of fun. It just I just needed to, remember how actually to draw a person. But I like the guy. It's dapper. It's like, hey, he has a good face. I was like, hey, no, I loved the design as soon as I got the reference, and I was like, yeah, I kind of like what you were talking about. I was like, oh yeah, suit, right? Yeah, there's not one of these in the lineup, and so I was real happy to come in and just be part of the other side of the equation as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We've got some preview pages here for everyone in the room, and I'll just toss back to you, Tom and Josh. And look, this is big Joe action. But obviously, we know that you guys can do a lot of really cool, build suspense and things like that. How do you balance that when making sure, when you're putting the story together?
Well, balance the
The
action and the...
action and everything in between.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're just trying to tell a story, and action is definitely important to the story, but to me, it's always about the characters.
Sure.
And it's like, I just really focus in on what the characters are doing, but also how to, what I like, when I'm reading the book, so Robert said earlier, we made the book that we wanted, and so that's what I'm doing when I'm working on it. I'm thinking about what I would want to read, but I mean, sometimes it's like silly stuff, I wouldn't say silly, but it's something that I love or I want, so it's like, I think one of the best G.I. Joe things ever is the introduction of G.I. Joe the movie, right? Like that sequence with Cobra, the Statue of Liberty, and the Joes come in with the rocket packs, and it was like, okay, so if we're bringing this in, we're gonna open with Joes and rocket packs, so it was like things like that, that's, so we kind of put all these pieces together, but for me, it's just always about the characters, like that's really where my focus is at, and then yeah, you want to see them in cool action sequences, like I always kind of take with each character, I sort of take something about them and then kind of focus in on it, so like Duke, he famously said, a man of action. So it was like, okay, that's a character that's always active, he's always action, right? Like he's always jumping off of buildings, he's always moving forward, right? And then Cobra Commander was almost the opposite, where Cobra Commander, his whole thing for so long was he would yell retreat. And really early on, Robert's his thing, he was basically like, I don't want this Cobra Commander retreat. He's like, the first time we see him, somebody should yell retreat, and the Cobra Commander shoots him in the head. That's what we did, we put it in the book. Right? We did that, and because it was like, what if this was a Cobra Commander that didn't run from the fight, but he was always the one who, instead of running, he also fought back. Like, that was his thing. That was just a small change to his character, right? But it makes a huge difference. You can see it in the miniseries. Like, that's what he does. He's manipulative, he's a bit of a nutso, but he never runs away from the fight, and that was a big difference in his character. So it was like, those little character changes, all of them led to these massive action sequences.
Love it. We do want to remind folks that if you will be in LA on November 13th, there is, you can win tickets for a screening for a once-in-a-lifetime G.I. Joe event. You can make sure you head over to the URL that is up on the screen, and it will be posted all over Skybound socials and beyond, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was when I was a kid, I swore, Robert and I were talking about this last night, it was like, I swore this was in the theaters. I know I saw Transformers in the theaters. That was my first real experience with death, was seeing Transformers in the theaters. And so I swore I saw this in the theaters, and then you get older and it's like, no, it was never in the theaters before, so I've always wanted to see G.I. Joe in the theaters. And so we started putting this together, that was one of my requests, was like, the day that the issue launches, can we do a screening? And thankfully Skybound and Hasbro were able to pull that together, so we're doing the screening in LA for the movie. Love that.
We'll move on to Void Rivals.
Yes.
Was bringing Pythona into Void Rivals always a part of the plan, or did that build as you were telling the story?
Yeah, no, not a part of the initial plan at all. It was always like, how do we incorporate G.I. Joe? How do we incorporate G.I. Joe? I don't want it to just be Transformers, characters and mythos and things at play in Void Rivals. And so, yeah, it wasn't until you were maybe halfway through the Cobra miniseries, and I contacted Sean and then Josh and was like, hey, these big giant creature vehicles that the Cobra line has, I think those things could be space-worthy. And I think Globulus could send Pythona out into space to, investigate the origins of Cobra Commander. Is that a thing we could do? And I was very grateful when you were like, yeah, let's do that, because, like, as a G.I. Joe character, it's like, I want you to, like, have the toys at your disposal. There's so many characters I'm keeping off the table, so to take another one and put them in Void Rivals just felt greedy.
I love that we're building this big universe that's connected, and there's opportunity for that. 'Cause remember, it was like a couple days after Christmas. We were all supposed to be not working, spending time with our families. And then Robert's sitting there being like, can I have Pythona? Can I get her in the book? But I think we had like a nice day back and forth. I remember we were going back and forth, and at the end of it, we were all, wow, this universe stuff is easy.
That's how it always works, right? You ask a question, you get what you want?
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun to do that. And like, oh yes, that makes sense, because I'm gonna do this at the ending, and that totally makes sense. That can be like our coda thing at the end. Are you gonna have her meet Hot Rod?
You want to talk about this later?
Okay, all right, sorry.
Probably. One of the things I will spoil that I'm super excited about that we're doing in Void Rivals is I love Cobra Law, and we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff with Pythona. And you can see Lorenzo De Felici's amazing portrayal of Globulus. I had it's like a dream sequence, because I was like, Globulus is not in space, but I'm not going to not write Globulus. And so we did that. But I love Cobra Law, and there's only really Globulus, Nemesis Enforcer, Pythona, and then the Royal Guard. And there's not like a lot of like named characters with distinct personalities and character traits and story about them. And so over the course of their adventure in Void Rivals, I'm going to be taking all of the Royal Guards members and like, giving them their own backstories and their own names, and kind of evolving them into their own characters over the course of this crazy journey in space that they're on. So you'll get to see like some real, like cool, hopefully like lasting G.I. Joe lore that's going to get introduced in that series. And then at a certain point in the future, when I've had my fill, I'll go G.I. Joe characters back to Josh.
Obviously, continue down the Hot Rod path. Was he on the hit list always, or he's very popular?
No, Hot Rod is my favorite. I love the '86 movie. Hot Rod's my favorite character. Yeah, it's the greatest. And you shaking your head? Do you want to fight?
Facts. He killed Optimus.
He didn't kill Optimus. He was young. The whole story is about him learning maturity. He becomes Optimus Prime. What are you talking about? Anyway, and I think it was funny. I think we were having some kind of meeting or conversation, and I just out loud said, I'm so surprised I haven't plugged Hot Rod into this book yet. And when I said it out loud, I was like, oh, well, I'm doing that now. And so I think I went back and was like, oh, they're like, how do I fit Hot Rod in here? And it happened very organically. And then I think I asked, like, you think Daniel will be okay with me using Hot Rod? And you were like, he's got no plans. And then I thought that was run past him, but then I saw him at a con, and he was like, I really love Hot Rod. I wish I could have done something with it. And I was like, oops. But I didn't feel
never
bad.
said anything to me.
I didn't feel bad at all. But
Jorge doesn't want to draw Hot Rod anyways. He told me.
Oh, I have when I started working on Transformers, one of a good friend of mine who I didn't realize was a huge Transformer fan, never in my life put that together. And the first thing she asked was are you in Rodimus? And I was like, well, let me tell you about that. So you have 3 more books that you need to read now, and then here you go. Here's Rod for you. But no, throw that at me. you know, whatever you want to do. You want to go to space? We can go to space.
Look, Daniel would have killed him anyway. So I'm just gonna say I saved Hot Rod in the Energon universe. You guys remember earlier when you were mad at me? But yeah, and Springer's running around in Void Rivals too, and so it's kind of like awesome to be writing a book where I can just go. I think a couple of Transformers are going to be side characters now, and yeah, they're going to be in the book for a while. So yeah, it's cool. Like there's a slide back where it's like, yeah, you got a Hot Rod on a variant cover and you got Pythona on a variant cover for the same book. Like as a fan of these properties, I don't think that's ever going to be possible. That's super cool. And then you got new characters like Minister Doolin over here and Durant. Which are also awesome, I swear.
Well, I want to talk in this next slide right here, the Skuid, who has become a real breakout. But that cover's a little ominous. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, we got issue 16 of Void Rivals. We got some insane Pythona versus Skuid action that's going to be pretty crazy. And I tell you, Skuid is in the book still because of that page. That was the surprise ending to issue 2, and I was like, we had Hot Rod, we had Jetfire.
Yeah.
Almost said Skyfire. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. Anyway, Jetfire in Void Rivals #1, and I was like, so we got to do something cool to show people that it's not just a one-time thing. We got to have some kind of element, but I didn't want to put another Transformer in, and I always just remember this like crazy pig guy that was in a bunch of episodes that would like had this crazy voice and just like would randomly show up and do stuff, and he was in like 4 or 5 different episodes, and so I started doing some research to find more about to refresh my memory of the character, and I was like, this guy's kind of neat, like it'll be cool if he shows up, and it was really intended to just be like a one-off neat kind of thing, and then when that page came out, I was like, I just love this character. This character is so cool. And I swear there's like 4 or 5 pages of every issue devoted to Skuid now. Like it's eventually going to be a Skuid book. Assuming Pythona doesn't kill him. But yeah, I love that character, and Hasbro just, I remember when I was like, I want to use Skuid, they were like, what? But we all love Skuid, right? Woo! Yeah! Let's hear applause for Skuid and then applause for Snake Eyes. Skuid! We don't have to do the other one.
All right, with that, we're going to move on to Transformers.
Yeah!
We're currently in an arc that Jason Howard is drawing that sees Starscream, who is, surprise, not really dead. But one of the things that I gotta ask you, Sean, we're gonna flip through some of the covers here, is on this next slide right here, that first cover. What's going on there?
I mean, Jorge drew a beautiful his tank. Yeah, when we last saw him, Soundwave had thrown him into a volcano and left him for dead. And Starscream is incredibly resilient. So these first 2 issues, 13 and 14, tell 2 stories. One in the present, of how he gets attached to the Sys tank, but also transports you back to Cybertron before he had joined the Decepticons. Kind of tell a really human story of who he was before then. But then, Daniel, once he gets his hands on some toys, was like, Sean, I got a crazy idea. These certain people are going to find him, and he'll get his legs back eventually, but he's going to be on his tank for a while. And there's a giant remote control.
Yep.
And sometimes Dan has these goofy ideas, but in application and in what they draw, it feels like the most natural thing to do. I don't know if Hasbro will ever be able to make a toy of this. They cost less than $1,000. But
Not our problem.
Yeah.
There's always tape that you get to slant.
And then we'll move on to 15 with, obviously, Jorge, you're back on that. But this is your first Energon Universe panel since working on Transformers. What's it been like for you to just kind of receive the loads of adulation
No.
for your work.
Thankful. Holy. No, it was very intimidating to kind of like follow Dan and then continue to work with him. Has been just really nice. But yeah, no, it was definitely intimidating to have to follow in his steps and making sure that the art remained up to the level that people were expecting, especially after the first arc. And just keep the intensity. Obviously, working with still with Dan on writing it. Obviously the energy that he brings all to the action, to the emotions and the character moments in his stories is like, okay, I need to keep the level. So it's been really nice. I've been very thankful that people have been liking the second volume and the my work in it, and honestly, I thought I was gonna get death threats, but it's been good. It's been really good.
What kind of industry do we work in which that's like the expectation?
What's that?
Death threats are very real.
Oh no. Yeah, especially if you're talking about like things like Transformers, G.I. Joe. I would it's like I'm gonna ruin someone's day, aren't I? And it's like no, it's been really nice. So yeah, thankful for that.
I want to talk about this scene from 11 with Ultra Magnus.
Yeah.
Sean, I'll start with you. What inspired the take, on Ultra Magnus this way that led to the story there?
I mean, that was 100% Dan. He had, I don't know. I mean, I think he was a character that we wanted to work in, and he was always a prisoner on Cybertron because that was something that related to both Alita's story and with RC. But I remember being on the phone, and Dan's like, this is in issue 11. He's gonna transform, and he's gonna have the Ultra Magnus and then he's gonna run away. I was like, wait, all right, wait, hold on. And it was a much larger story about this guy's been in prison for 1 million years and been tortured, and he would just be so psychologically scarred and not ready for confrontation. So I think actually the story of the next arc or so is a lot more compelling and rebuilds that character and pushes him into some exciting directions.
Nice. Jorge, when you get this script for something like that, how do you even begin to just lay that out and tell that story?
With Ultra Magnus, we had. I mean, this was the build-up of almost like the whole second arc. Like when the first time that you see him, like you're not supposed to recognize him. Like he's literally like nothing, like a skeleton of the character that we know. And slowly, we started hinting here and there that it's like this is this character. Like we're gonna see you see him through the eyes of everyone else, right? Like you see him through Elita, you see him through RC, and it was specifically for this moment. I was like, okay, how obviously the script is doing it as well, especially with that turn of that page. But at the same time, it was like, how can we show the promise of the character in the present, but still like Sean said, like this guy has been reduced to nothing for centuries, millennia, and how could he just bounce back? It's not just a superficial like, oh, we put your skin back together, basically. So I wanted, like the script said double page spread. It shows up. I can't remember if like it had like other panels or not, but like we just decided to make it this one big image of this Ultra Magnus, as big as it's gonna get. This imposing character, and then we'll reveal how broken he can be, and he is inside. And yeah, I'm excited for the next couple issues, like how we're gonna expand on that story and talk more about this like giant that has to rebuild himself, not just the outside, but from the inside as well.
I think an important part of that is also like, it was questioning Optimus's choice and his leadership, and Alita was like, we've been suffering. Everyone that is suffering on Cybertron is suffering because of your poor leadership.
Yeah.
So it was ultimately, all the stories are pointing towards like Optimus and the burden that he carries and the choices that he's made and choosing now to protect Earth over what's happening and ending the war. Just becomes a lot more complex and really kind of brings out some more depth in that character.
That's great. Sean, I do want to ask you, in the Comic Book Day special, was a Megatron tee. Is there anything you can give us? We'll taste.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've seen him on some covers. He definitely shows up he's very important to Starscream's backstory. And I would say that he's on a collision course with both the Autobots and Decepticons. It has a lot of, he's not going to enjoy what's been going on since he's been away. So if y'all Megatron fans are out there, get ready very soon.
And then before we get to something else, I want to talk about the Deluxe Edition program that you guys are going to be doing. Obviously, you know, Transformers was this past summer, winning 2 Eisners for that. But can you talk to us about what fans can expect with these big, beautiful books?
Yeah, I mean, God, I can't believe it's already time, but these will be oversized hardcovers that collect the first 2 trades in each series. So codenamed G.I. Joe. The first one will collect Duke and Cobra Commander. The second will collect Scarlet and Destro. But yeah, we love oversized, well-produced, well-designed collections. Andres Juarez, our head graphic designer, did an incredible job on these. I think we print some of the best hardcovers in the business. So they'll start coming out. Actually, Transformers will be in stores right in time for Free Comic Book Day. We have a Free Comic Book Day of the Energon Universe special dropping this year. I don't know if we have the cover in here, but we'll actually be having a G.I. Joe lead story. So Josh and Andrea Milana, the artist of Cobra Commander, will be joining him to do and then we'll also have a Transformers story by Dan, and then Robert will be doing a Boy Bravo story in there. Yeah.
We will have time for a few questions, but before we do, I just want to let everyone know that everyone in the audience will be getting 1 copy of the exclusive G.I. Joe Ash Can. There will be folks here that will be able to hand them out. So, you know, as always with these things, stay civil, be polite, and everyone will get a copy. We promise. If you've got questions, no real